Have you ever felt this specific kind of loneliness? The kind that doesn't really have a name. It's not about being alone in a room. No, it's about being in a room full of people and just seeing things that nobody else seems to get. If that sounds even a little bit familiar, then you're in exactly the right place. Okay, let's get into it.
It's this, right? It's this feeling. You know who's faking a smile, you can sense the tension that's about to break, and then comes that sinking feeling when you realize you're the only one. This quote just hits the nail on the head. It captures that feeling of isolation perfectly.
And here's the thing you have to understand. If this is you, you're not broken. It's not a flaw. The legendary psychologist Carl Jung actually identified this as a profound human trait. He saw it as a gift, one he called differentiated perception. But, and this is a big but, it's a gift that he also warned can be incredibly dangerous. So first up, let's just sit with the feeling itself for a moment. What does it actually feel like to live with this nameless loneliness that comes from seeing just a little too much? Jung once wrote about a patient of his who lived this every single day. Imagine this. She'd walk into a party and could instantly tell which marriage was about to fall apart. She could feel the crushing self-doubt hiding behind her most confident colleague. But whenever she'd mention these things, even gently, she was labeled as negative, people told her she was just projecting. So what happened? She learned to stop talking. She just stayed silent, watching the world like a movie, seeing all the little cracks in the set that everyone else was pretending not to see.
Okay, so we've established the feeling. Now, let's give it a name and really unpack the psychology behind why this way of seeing the world causes so much friction.
The term Jung gave it was differentiated perception. So what is that? Well, it's the ability to process all these subtle, unconscious signals flying around a room that most people's brains just filter out. We're talking about the flicker in someone's eye, the unspoken agreement between two people. It's not about being psychic, it's like your mind is tuned to a higher frequency, picking up on way more social and emotional data. Now, Jung made a really critical distinction here. This is not the same thing as being emotionally sensitive. A sensitive person feels deeply. It's about emotional intensity. But a perceptive person sees deeply. It's about psychological clarity. And Jung was clear. Seeing the hidden truth is way, way more disruptive to a social group than just feeling things intensely. And this little chart really shows you why it can feel so lonely. Jung figured that while maybe 20% of people are highly sensitive, 1 in 5, only about 1% of the population has this kind of deep, differentiated perception. That's a tiny number. And being that rare is a huge part of what makes it all so isolating. So, why is this perception so disruptive? Well, it's because almost every social group, our families, our workplaces, our friendships, they all run on an unwritten rule that Jung called managed blindness. Basically, we all subconsciously agree not to talk about certain uncomfortable truths just to keep the peace and make things work. But someone with differentiated perception can't just unsee those truths. Their very presence can feel like a spotlight, and it makes people deeply uncomfortable. And you know what happens when people feel like they've been seen too clearly? They often use a defense mechanism Jung called shadow projection. They take all their own stuff they don't want to deal with, their shadow, and they project it onto you. Suddenly, you're the problem. You're the one stirring the pot. What's interesting is that Jung noticed this trait doesn't show up in the exact same way for everyone. So, in this next section, let's go over the 4 main types he identified. As I go through them, see if you recognize yourself in any of these descriptions. First up, you've got the feeling perceiver. These folks literally absorb the emotional energy of a room into their own bodies. Their biggest challenge is what's called emotional contamination. They have a really hard time figuring out which feelings are theirs and which belong to someone else. Then there's the thinking perceiver. They're the pattern spotters, the ones who can see where things are headed long before anyone else. But this leads to something called anticipatory grief. They're already mourning what's coming while being totally powerless to stop it. Third is the somatic perceiver. For them, information registers physically. A tense meeting gives them a headache, a dishonest person makes their stomach turn. Their biggest struggle is just physical overload. And finally, the pure intuitive. These are the people who just know things. There's no logical reason, no data points, just a deep, unshakable knowing. And their lifelong challenge is crippling self-doubt, always wondering if they're crazy or irrational. And this brings us to the really heavy part, why Jung called this gift so dangerous. Because if you don't understand it, if you don't learn how to manage it,
this gift can cause some real lasting damage.
The first danger is a deep, chronic isolation. It's this constant feeling of being untranslatable. You spend your whole life performing a version of yourself that fits in, that doesn't rock the boat, but the real you, the one who sees it all, stays completely hidden. You belong, but you're never, ever truly known.
The second risk is something called psychological destabilization. Think about it. When you are a walking antenna, constantly picking up on the unconscious thoughts and feelings of everyone around you, the boundary between you and them starts to get really blurry. Your own sense of self starts to erode. This can often look like anxiety or depression, but the real root cause is perceptual overload.
And the third danger is a trap, a really seductive one that Jung called the prophet complex. After years and years of being dismissed and rejected for what you see, it's so easy to become rigid, judgmental, and absolutely convinced that you're the only one who sees the truth. Your gift of clarity curdles into harsh certainty. You go from being a witness to being a judge, and that's a lonely place to be.
But, and this is the most important part, Jung was not a pessimist. He absolutely believed that transformation was possible. And that brings us to our final section, the roadmap he gave us for integrating this gift, for turning it from a heavy burden into a powerful strength.
He called this journey individuation, and it basically unfolds in 4 stages. First is recognition and separation. This is about learning to tell the difference between your own feelings and the stuff you're absorbing from other people. And often that means spending time alone to find your baseline. Stage 2 is shadow work. This means taking a brutally honest look at the darker, less flattering parts of yourself. Why? Because you can't see clearly in others what you refuse to see in yourself. Stage 3 is conscious participation. This is where you learn to build what Jung called psychological containers, an inner strength that allows you to see what's going on with others without letting it knock you over. And finally, stage 4, service without sacrifice. This is where you learn to offer your gift intentionally in a way that actually helps people instead of wounding them.
And let's be super clear about this. The goal is never to suppress your perception. You can't turn it off anyway. The real work is to develop a conscious, intentional relationship with it. It's about learning how to use the volume dial instead of having it blasted at full volume all the time.
You know, a massive part of this journey is finding your people. Jung was adamant that finding even 1 or 2 people who don't need you to perform being ordinary can be totally life-changing. You're looking for people who've done their own inner work, people who are curious about themselves, or just those wonderfully steady people who can handle complexity without freaking out. So if you have been told your entire life that you're too intense, too sensitive, or just plain too much, I want you to consider this powerful reframe from Jung. You're not the problem. You might just be what he called a consciousness pioneer, someone who is sensing the future patterns before everyone else can see them.
And that really brings us to the heart of it all. The goal isn't to dumb yourself down. It's not to lower your frequency to make other people more comfortable. The real work, the life's work, is to build yourself up, to become strong enough to be equal to the powerful gift that you carry.
So as you think about all this, I'm really curious, which of those 4 types, the feeling, the thinking, the somatic, or the intuitive perceiver, which one resonates most with you and your own experience? Thanks so much for tuning in.